Welcome back to the program. Biden has forgiven a total of $175 billion in student loan debt for about 5 million people. The administration announced Thursday that it was forgiving another $4.5 billion in student loan debt for more than 60,000 borrowers. This latest round of relief is a result of the U.S. Department of Education's fixes to the popular but once troubled Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Now, President Joe Biden, who has forgiven more education debt than any other president in U.S. history, said that the number of borrowers to benefit from the program under his administration now exceeds 1 million people. Who is actually seeing their debt forgiven? CNN has a report on this. In 2022, 16 million borrowers got an email from the Biden administration that said they qualified for debt relief, but no loan forgiveness was ever granted by the program. That debt relief program was estimated to have cost more than 400 billion US dollars. Joining me now to discuss the Biden administration's announcing additional student loan debt forgiveness is Executive Vice President at the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold. Brandon, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So talk to me. I just keep seeing announcements about people having their loans forgiven, but my mortgage statement keeps coming here. I don't have any student loan debt. When do I get a turn?
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Unfortunately, they just keep rolling out more forgiveness after more forgiveness. And listen, I get it. It's a tough economy out there. A lot of people are struggling. A lot of people are accepting this because they, they need a lifeline to pay their grocery bill, their utility bill, to fill up their tank of gasoline for their car. But, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, I'm a little outdated in the regard that I still believe in the United States Constitution, the importance of the division of powers amongst the various departments and agencies. The executive branch should not have the ability to forgive $175 billion of student debt unilaterally. That should involve the Congress. The courts have struck down some of his efforts, as was noted in that CNN article, to forgive even more debt, but we still have an imbalance of power. Congress should spend money. Congress should tax money, should tax the United States citizenry. And the president should, of course, sign any laws into practice. But the president shouldn't have this authority to just wave a magic wand and forgive hundreds of billions of dollars of debt. That comes out of the Treasury. So we are paying for that, you and I, Stacy, as well as our fellow taxpayers across the country.
And I'm going to tell you something. I joked around about having loans forgiven, but the fact is the mortgage on our home was something that my husband and I thought long and hard about, and we undertook this debt knowing that we would have to pay it off ourselves. And we have no expectation that anyone's going to help us with it. My husband has student loans, and he doesn't have any expectation that that student loan debt would be forgiven. I think it's really odd that they keep making these announcements about the forgiveness during election years, and they keep doing it within the window with which people are actually voting. We have 20 states, I think there might be even more than 20 states right now, who are engaging in early voting. Announcements like this could impact the election, and it feels like election interference to me.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt they're trying to suck up to a constituency of voters out there with this announcement. Giving people billions of dollars on the eve of an election is more than a little head scratching. And yeah, I mean, we all have debt to some extent, right? And we all have taken out mortgages or taken out loans to buy cars. And we expect that when we do so, we're going to pay that off. We're not going to get a handout from the federal government or any other kind of agency or get fairy godmother. Nobody's going to give us that money. We're going to pay that off. And that's what a lot of people that have student debt have done over the years. They've worked hard. They've passed up opportunities to go on vacation or do other fun things. They put their nose to the grindstone to pay off those student debts. And what about those people? What about those people who have paid off their debt already? And they're seeing people that maybe are struggling for whatever reason, haven't gotten their debt paid off quite yet. The federal government swooping in and helping those folks, but not the ones that live more responsibly and more financially responsibly and paying off their debts. That's why I think it's a really unfair situation here. Some people are getting benefits, some aren't, and it's the federal government making that decision. It's really unfair.
It is. It's unfair. And so going forward, because the Supreme Court has struck down a number of these announcements, how do they continue to make student debt forgiveness when the Supreme Court has now on numerous occasions weighed in and said you can't do that from the executive branch?
Yeah, I mean, the Supreme Court's decision was somewhat narrow in that it struck down the creation of a new program that the Biden administration was trying to implement. And that was the big whopper because, again, that could have been $400 billion, which is just a staggering amount of money. But what they've done since is utilize existing programs, and they've essentially supersized existing programs. The one that they just announced, the $4.5 billion, that was a program that was passed by Congress back in 2007. So it's been around for a little while, and that's specifically providing student loan forgiveness to people who are doing things like working for the federal government. Now, you combine it all together, and you're still talking about $175 billion of money that, again, the executive branch is unilaterally essentially forgiving, and I think that's tremendously problematic. If it's hard to wrap your brain around $175 billion, that is more than the budget of the entire Department of Energy. It's almost as big as the Department of Homeland Security. It's a massive amount of money. And if you want to spend that much money, you have to go through the regular legislative process. Bills need to be introduced, passed by both chambers of Congress, signed by the president. That's how things ought to work. Unfortunately, we've shifted way too much power into the executive branch, and we're paying the price for it today.
Yes, because as far as I know, it's almost three times the annual budget of the United States Marine Corps. Marine Corps annual budget is 59 billion, 150 some odd billion. I mean, that you're or 175 billion. Yeah, you're in the zone there. You're right at three times that budget. It means you could actually fund three United States Marine Corps, and that sounds pretty interesting. Funding three of our U.S. Marine. I mean. I'm not a warmonger, but that sounds like a fascinating proposition. Brandon Arnold, Executive Vice President at the National Taxpayers Union, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Stacy.